My name is Rebecca Harris, though sometimes I wonder if I should even carry that last name anymore. Because the truth is, it came with more pain than I ever thought one woman could bear. I grew up in a modest little town in Ohio. My parents weren't rich, but they raised me with love, honesty, and hard work. My dad was a mechanic, and my mom worked at a diner. We didn't have much, but what we had, we shared. I never cared about wealth or social status until I met Daniel Harris. Daniel was everything I wasn't used to: handsome, well-dressed, and confident. He came from one of the wealthiest families in our town. The Harrises owned a chain of real estate companies, and their name was practically stamped on every building you looked at. When Daniel first asked me out, I thought it was some kind of mistake. A man like him with me? But he said he loved my simplicity, my sincerity. He said I was different. I believed him. We dated for 2 years before he proposed. I still remember the day he slipped that diamond ring on my finger. I thought my whole life was about to change for the better. And it did change, but not the way I expected. You see, marrying Daniel meant marrying his family too. And from the very beginning, I knew they didn't approve of me. His mother, Margaret Harris, had this look she gave me the first time we met, like I was dirt under her shoe. She smiled politely, but her eyes said, "You don't belong here." His father, Richard, barely spoke to me, and his sister, Claire, well, she saw me as competition. I was the outsider, the small-town girl who somehow stole her brother's attention. But I thought love would be enough. I thought Daniel would protect me from all of that. I told myself their opinions didn't matter, that once they got to know me, they'd accept me. So I smiled, I tried, I endured their little comments and judgmental stares. For a while, I convinced myself I could win them over. But I had no idea. Marrying into that family was the biggest mistake of my life. The first year of marriage should have been a honeymoon phase, right? For me, it was anything but. Margaret, my mother-in-law, had a way of making me feel small without ever raising her voice. She'd say things like, "Oh, Rebecca dear, maybe you shouldn't wear that dress. It looks inexpensive." Or, "Daniel is used to a certain standard. I just hope you can keep up." Always with that smile, always pretending it was advice, not an insult. Claire, Daniel's sister, wasn't any better. She was single at the time, and every family dinner turned into a competition. She'd brag about her job, her vacations, her designer clothes. Then she'd turn to me and ask, "So, Rebecca, what do you do again?" Even though she knew very well I'd left my receptionist job to support Daniel while he worked his way up in the family company. It was her way of reminding me that, in her eyes, I was nothing. And then there was Tom, Daniel's younger brother. Tom was reckless, always in some kind of debt. He treated me like a walking wallet. He'd come to me when Daniel wasn't around, whispering, "Hey, can you lend me a couple hundred? I'll pay you back. Don't tell Mom." At first, I helped him, thinking maybe kindness would make him like me. But of course, he never paid me back. Through it all, I tried to stay quiet, to keep the peace. I didn't want to cause problems for Daniel. He was working long hours, trying to prove himself to his parents, and the last thing I wanted was to add to his stress. But the cracks were starting to show, because while I was biting my tongue and swallowing my pride, I couldn't help noticing something. Daniel never really stood up for me. Whenever his mother criticized me, he just laughed it off. When Claire made her little digs, he stayed silent. And when Tom borrowed money, Daniel shrugged and said, "That's just Tom." It hurt, but I kept telling myself, he loves me. That's what matters. Love will get us through this. But I was wrong, because the first real betrayal, it didn't come from Margaret or Claire or Tom. It came from Daniel. It started with something small, or at least it seemed small at the time. Daniel and I had been saving money for years. Every extra dollar I could scrape together from side jobs, I put into our savings account. That money was supposed to be for our first home, a place of our own away from his family's mansion. I used to dream about it, picking out curtains, planting flowers in the yard, finally having a space where I felt like I belonged. One evening, I logged into our bank account to check the balance and almost fainted. The money was gone, every last cent. I remember confronting Daniel, my hands shaking. "Where's the money, Daniel? Our savings. What happened?" He didn't even look guilty. He just sighed and said, "I invested it. Dad said it was a good opportunity with the company. Don't worry, it'll double in no time." I stared at him, completely stunned. "You invested our entire savings without even telling me?" He brushed me off like I was being dramatic. "Rebecca, it's fine. This is how real wealth is made. My parents know what they're doing. Trust me." Trust him. That's what he always said. And stupidly, I did. But weeks passed, then months, and the money never came back. When I asked him about it, he grew defensive. His mother overheard one of our arguments and said, "Oh, Rebecca, if you knew anything about finances, you'd understand that these things take time. Perhaps next time, leave the big decisions to Daniel." The humiliation burned inside me. Not only had I lost our savings, but somehow it was being painted as my fault for questioning him, for not understanding business. And Daniel? He didn't apologize. He didn't even seem to care. He was too busy basking in the approval of his family, who praised him for being smart enough to take risks. That night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, my chest tight with anger. For the first time, I wondered if I had made a terrible mistake marrying him. I should have left right then. I should have packed my bags, walked away, and never looked back. But I didn't. I stayed. And that decision nearly destroyed me. After the savings disappeared, I thought things couldn't get worse. But I was wrong. The Harrises had a way of twisting every situation until I looked like the fool. They acted as if I had no right to question anything. And Daniel? He was slipping further into their control. It started with paperwork. Margaret told Daniel that for financial safety, he should transfer the deed of our little starter home into her name temporarily. She said it would protect us from liability since the family business was expanding. I didn't like it. I said, "Daniel, that's our house, our only asset. Why would we put it under your mother's name?" But he waved me off, just like always. "It's just a formality, Rebecca. My parents know best. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Against my instincts, I let him do it. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself it didn't mean anything. But deep down, I knew. I was being pushed out of my own life. Soon, the house wasn't mine anymore. And neither was Daniel. I'd catch him on the phone late at night with his mother, whispering, agreeing with her. Decisions about our marriage, our future, were being made without me. Every time I tried to speak up, I was silenced. "Stop being difficult," he'd say. "You're overreacting." Meanwhile, Claire flaunted her wealth at every gathering, smirking as if she'd already won some unspoken war against me. Tom got bolder too, borrowing larger amounts, promising to pay me back, then laughing it off like it was a joke. Piece by piece, they were stripping me of everything. My voice, my security, my independence. And then came the day Margaret looked me in the eye across that long mahogany dining table and said, "Rebecca, maybe it's time you start thinking about your role here. This family needs stability, not distractions." The message was clear. I was the distraction, the outsider, the one who didn't belong. And soon they made sure I lost the last shred of security I had left, because losing the house was nothing compared to what they stole from me next. I still remember the day it all collapsed. It was a Sunday afternoon One of those family lunches where everyone gathered at the Harris mansion. Margaret was in her element, playing hostess, directing the maids like a general commanding her army. I sat quietly, watching, trying not to let my nerves show. After lunch, Margaret asked to speak privately. Daniel followed her into the study, and I trailed behind, not wanting to be left out. That's when she dropped the bomb. "Daniel, dear," she said sweetly, ignoring me entirely, "it might be best for you to create some distance. Rebecca doesn't fit in to this family. She's holding you back. Maybe you should consider a separation." I froze. Separation? My heart pounded in my chest. I looked at Daniel, waiting for him to defend me, to say, "No, mother, I love her. She's my wife." But he didn't. He just stared at the floor, silent. "Daniel," I snapped, my voice cracking. "Say something! You can't be serious about this." He finally looked at me, his eyes cold. "Maybe Mom's right, Rebecca. Things haven't been working. You're not happy here. Maybe we should take a break." The words sliced through me like a knife. A break? After everything I'd given up for him? After sacrificing my savings, my pride, my peace? Margaret's lips curved into that smug little smile. She'd won. Then came Tom. He was sloppy with everything he did, especially his debts. One night, I followed him after a bar crawl, keeping my distance. I watched him stumble into a dingy office building where he met with a man I recognized as a local loan shark. I recorded the whole exchange from the shadows. The loan shark yelled, "You better come up with my money, Tom, or I'll tell your family where you've been getting it." And then there was Margaret. I'd always known she was hiding something. She was too polished, too perfect, too controlling not to be. It took weeks of digging, but eventually I stumbled across it. Lisa worked in real estate and had access to certain files. One evening, she placed a folder in front of me and whispered, "You need to see this." Inside were property transactions tied to Margaret, large sums of money funneled into a private account. But what caught my eye wasn't the money. It was the name on one of the transfers. It wasn't Harris. It was to a woman in another state, a woman with a child. The notes listed monthly support payments. At first, I didn't believe it, but the more I dug, the clearer it became. Richard, my father-in-law, had a secret, illegitimate child, and Margaret had been covering it up for years with hush money. I sat there, staring at the papers, my hands trembling. The perfect Harris family, the dynasty that had taken everything from me, was rotting from the inside. And now, I had proof. For the first time in years, I felt something burning inside me again. Not just anger, not just pain, but purpose. I finally had the weapon I needed. But the question was, how should I use it? I spent weeks thinking about what to do with the evidence. Part of me wanted to storm into the Harris mansion, slam the files on the table, and watch their faces crumble. But I knew that wouldn't be enough. They had destroyed me carefully, piece by piece. My revenge had to be just as precise. So I started making moves, quiet ones. First, I slipped an anonymous tip to a local journalist about Senator Whitman and his friendship with Claire. Within days, rumors started swirling. The senator's office issued a stiff denial, but the whispers wouldn't stop. And Claire? She panicked. She called me one night, her voice trembling, not realizing it was me who started the storm. "Someone's spreading lies about me, Rebecca. Do you know anything about it?" I bit my tongue to stop from laughing. Lies? If only she knew. Next came Tom. I forwarded the recordings of his meetings with the loan shark to one of the company's board members, anonymously, of course. Soon enough, Tom's position at the family firm was questioned. He'd always been the golden boy who could do no wrong, but suddenly, whispers of fraud and theft swirled around him. He grew desperate, edgy, snapping at everyone. And then, Margaret. For her, I saved the best for last. I didn't release the documents publicly, not yet. Instead, I sent copies directly to her with a single note, "I know." The next time I saw her, at a charity gala, her face was pale, her hand shaking as she held her glass. For once, Margaret Harris, the unshakable matriarch, looked terrified. Meanwhile, Daniel began to notice the chaos. One evening, out of the blue, he showed up at Lisa's apartment. He looked nothing like the confident Mon I'd once married. His tie was loose, his hair messy, his voice desperate. "Rebecca, please," he said, practically begging. "Everything's falling apart. Mom's stressed, Claire's a wreck, Tom's in trouble. I need you. I need your help." I stared at him, barely recognizing the man I used to love. After everything he had put me through, after siding with his family and throwing me away like I was nothing, now he wanted me back? A part of me almost pitied him. Almost. But I wasn't finished yet, not by a long shot. I decided it was time to confront Margaret directly. If I wanted to finish this carefully orchestrated revenge, I had to face the head of the snake herself. I requested a private meeting under the guise of reconciliation. She agreed, confident, as always, that I'd come groveling back. I walked into the Harris mansion, calm, collected, carrying nothing but a folder of evidence and a steady heartbeat full of purpose. Margaret greeted me at the door with that familiar, smug smile. "Rebecca, darling, what a surprise. Come in, we should talk." I followed her into the study and closed the door behind me. "Margaret," I began, my voice quiet but firm, "I know everything." Her smile faltered ever so slightly. "Know everything? I don't know what you mean." I opened the folder and placed it on the desk. Claire's affair, Tom's embezzlement, Richard's secret child, the hush money, all of it, meticulously documented. I watched her face carefully, waiting for the cracks. Margaret's hands trembled as she reached for the papers, but I pulled them back. "Don't touch them. I know what you've done, and I have proof. Everything. Every secret you thought was buried is now at my fingertips." She swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper. "Rebecca, we can handle this. We can fix it." I leaned forward, letting the tension hang in the air. "Fix it? You mean bribe me, threaten me, beg me to stay silent? That's how you've handled everything your life. But I'm not afraid of you. Not anymore." She looked like a corner animal, desperate, dangerous, and furious all at once. And I realized this was the first time she had ever been afraid of me. I recorded the entire conversation on my phone, capturing every stammer, every attempt at manipulation. This wasn't just revenge anymore. This was justice, and it was finally within my reach. As I left the study, Margaret's eyes burned into my back. I felt a strange satisfaction knowing that the woman who had taken so much from me was finally vulnerable. For the first time in years, the Harrises weren't untouchable, and I knew their fall was just beginning. Once the first pieces of evidence were out, the dominoes began to fall, and they fell fast. News of Claire's affair with Senator Whitman hit the tabloids. The senator's career teetered, and Claire's reputation, the one she had spent her whole life polishing, was in ruins. Her friends avoided her, her calls went unanswered, and Margaret's attempts to shield her daughter only made things worse. Tom's embezzlement became the next scandal. The board held emergency meetings, auditors pored over the company accounts, and soon the authorities were involved. Tom went from being the spoiled golden boy to the disgraced black sheep overnight. Margaret tried to contain the chaos, but she couldn't. Every secret I had uncovered became a weapon, a chain reaction of humiliation, panic, and fear. The Harrises were unraveling, piece by piece, and Daniel, he finally realized what his family had done. One evening, Daniel called me, his voice cracked, desperate. "Rebecca, I can't fix this. Mom, Claire, Tom, they're all falling apart. I need you." I shook my head, holding back a laugh that was bitter and triumphant all at once. "You need me? Daniel, you abandoned me. You let them take everything from me. I don't help people who hurt me." And with that, I walked away. I watched from the sidelines as the Harrises' empire crumbled. Margaret faced lawsuits, public scrutiny, and the betrayal of her own family. Claire became a social pariah. Tom faced criminal charges. Richard's illegitimate child became public knowledge, and the family name, once untouchable, was tarnished beyond repair. I didn't seek revenge for money or power. I sought it for dignity, for the life they had tried to steal from me. And as I finally closed that chapter, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: freedom. But my story wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming something they could never take from me. Sitting here now, looking back on everything, I realize how much I lost and how much I gained. I lost my home. I lost my savings. I lost the man I loved, or at least the man I thought I loved. I lost years of trust and a sense of safety that I thought marriage would give me. But I gained something far more valuable: my dignity, my independence, and the knowledge that I am stronger than anyone ever believed. I learned that some families hide their rot behind perfection, that wealth can't protect you from the truth, that people you love can betray you in ways you never imagined, and most importantly, that revenge, when executed with patience and precision, can restore what seems irretrievably lost. The Harrises are still part of my life, in news articles, whispers, and the occasional awkward encounter in town. But I am no longer a victim. I don't fear them, and I don't need them. The power they thought they had over me, the power to strip away everything, is gone. I took back more than my life. I took their secrets. Sometimes, late at night, I think about Daniel. I wonder if he ever truly understood what he had, or if he'll always blame me for the chaos I unleashed. But I don't dwell on him. I don't dwell on them. I move forward. Because the truth is simple. They took everything from me. But in the end, I took what mattered most: their secrets. And with that knowledge, I walk freely, unshackled and unbroken.